Yeah, so she kissed the picture to show that that this girl in the picture was her very close friend, and then indicated she wanted to buy the other earring. And while it wasn't 30 days, obviously, the man understood, and he told her how many, yuan. I think Chinese use something called a yuan, yuan. Uh, and it wasn't very much because it wasn't terribly valuable. It was a hell of a lot more than it would cost if you bought it in the States, because it wasn't a fancy earring, but what they know. And the girl paid it. It wasn't more than she had, and she took it, and she felt like, that was a first step. And then she decided she would go out and find someone who spoke both Chinese and English, bring them back to the pawn shop, and have them talk to the man and find out how he got the earring, what the people look like, and all that kind of stuff. Well, it wasn't easy. There aren't a lot of people walking around in Beijing, which is a big city in China, who speak English, but she was lucky. She was lucky. She tried largely young people, and would you believe she found someone who wasn't Chinese walking down the street, and she thought she'd take a chance. So she said, excuse me, do you speak English? And the person said, oh, yes, I do. I speak English, I speak Hebrew, I speak Arabic. I'm from Israel. Oh, she said, my goodness, my two friends are from Israel. Well, that's very interesting. I don't know exactly where they are, because we're all out looking for my very good friend Hannah, who we think might have been kidnapped. And the young man said, well, how can I help? I'm here on, an adventure myself, and I'd be happy to join you and help find your friend. And she said, oh, well, that would be very nice, very nice. What was your name? He said, my name is Ariel. Aha, Ariel. What do they call you? He said, Arik. She said, Arik, is that like the famous general from Israel, Arik Sharon? He said, well, yes, as a matter of fact it is, but, I'm not a general. I'm just a young guy traveling around, after, the army, we always go out traveling around. So, because he was a very young guy, I think he was like 19 and a half or 20, something like that. He just finished his army service, and he was out there. And he spoke, she said, well, this is wonderful, but do you speak Chinese? He says, it's funny you should ask whether I speak Chinese, because the answer is, I do speak Chinese. I studied Chinese, in the university, because I actually had in mind that I wanted to possibly work in international trade, trading between great nations, and China is clearly the up-and-coming country in the world. So I studied Chinese. I could read and write and speak Chinese. Well, she said, you are heaven sent. You are direct from Hashemayim. Please come with me to the pawn shop where my friend's earring had been sold, and talk to the man and see what you can learn about how he got the earring. Well, the two of them, Ariel and Kim, went to the pawn shop, went in, and sure enough, Ariel immediately, took the earring in his hand and held it up and said to the man in Chinese, now I won't try to speak Chinese, but I will say this much. It's a language that not only has words, it also has tones. It's like reading Torah a little bit. The inflections is the word. If you go up or you go down, if you raise the pitch or lower the pitch. So it sounds like something like that. I'm sure the Chinese people would not agree with that particular rendition of their language. But he did in fact speak like that, and the man answered him like that, and they had a somewhat lengthy conversation, and then he turned around to Kim and said, well, I've got good news and I've got bad news. She said, give me the good news first. He says, the good news is that not only do I have descriptions of these two people, a man and a woman, who brought this earring in, for hucking in English they call it, selling it to a pawn shop. You huck the wristwatch or you huck the earrings. Yeah. That's the good news. And also, this pawn shop owner seems to have seen them around. There are people who have been in the neighborhood. That's the good news. See, what's the bad news? Well, he said, the bad news is these are really rotten-looking characters. I mean, low life. You know what I mean? Low life, and you know, you don't really want to be kidnapped by these people because they are scum. They are like the crap that floats on dirty water. They are lower than whale shit. That's what they say in the Bronx, lower than whale shit, because they figure the whales are really big and they're in the deep ocean, and when they take a caca, it goes all the way down to the bottom. So that's one of the phrases that I learned as a kid. You know, sort of like, what do I do with your bones when I'm finished? You know, that kind of thing. It's like, he's lower than whale shit. Well, this Israeli guy, turns out that he had a number of American friends in Israel, and a couple of them were in the army, like Abba, like Shia was in the army. I don't know if he knows lower than whale shit. You could ask him, because he grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in the Bronx, you know, the real city. He grew up in a suburb, you know. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. But anyway, these are very low-life characters, and he gave me a description. He said, first of all, the woman is enormously fat, you know, has pimples all over her face, and she's missing a number of teeth. I mean, she smells. I mean, the pawnbroker, the guy who owned the shop, couldn't wait for her to get out of the shop. He was so disgusted with her. And her partner is like a little weasel. He's half her height, and he's real skinny, you know, and he has like a long, sharp nose, and he has a little mustache, and he's like a real weasel. They're Chinese. They're both Chinese, but they barely look Chinese. In fact, no matter where they came from, you wouldn't say they looked like they came from there, because what they really looked like was crap. I mean, you know, people who look like that look pretty bad no matter where they live, you know. But they were Chinese, in fact, and he has seen them around. And in fact, if you see him once, you won't forget him. Well, Kim said, did he say that they had a girl with her? And he said, well, no. The only thing he said was that they had one of those really gigantic like cases for musical instruments. You know, there are, you know, giant instruments like a harp or even a cello. You know, they're very big. And this was a harp box. It was gigantic. She said, big enough for a person to be inside it? Ariel said, I didn't think of that. Of course, there could have been a person in it. And did he say anything else? I mean, was there any noise coming out of the box? And no, the man said no. It was just, he thought there was like a harp or something in it. You know, a harp is a big instrument with strings on it, you know, and maybe if you don't know what it is, you could look it up on the web or ask, you know, your mother or father. And, you know, so Ariel said, you know, this is serious, you know, this could mean she was in the case. We're going to have a tough time finding her, I'm afraid. These people don't sound like good people, and I'm worried. Kim said, you're worried? She's my best friend. We've traveled all over the world together. You know, we didn't come directly to China. We've been together for months. We have to find her. And Ariel said, I will help you. I will do what I can to help find this girl. And they went out of the shop and started to look around and ask people if anyone has seen this weird and ugly looking couple carrying a gigantic case